for those of you that have the opportunity to use our polling tool, this is going to be the first question that we're going to ask. So if you want to try to answer the question of how much progress has your organization made with IIoT Convergence, if you can find out how to use the tool, that's great. I'm Craig Resnick with ARC Advisory Group. We're going to be doing a session on IIoT Convergence and linking the legacy. And the good part of this session is we have the most speakers of any session in the forum. We have four great speakers, 5 panelists, which means if I go a little fast with my presentation, I'm not just trying to rush off the stage. I just want to make as much room as I can for the other speakers. So I see we have one person that knows how to use the tool. I'd say that's in progress is probably a fair number, anyways. Now we have 2 people. 3. Wow, we got it. Awesome. Well, we'd like to meet the person who answered full. Well, I'd say this is certainly a question we can certainly continue with our when we get to the panel session later. But certainly this is not a new topic by any means. We've all continued to hear a lot about it. There's certainly a fast learning curve on both sides of the OT and IT side of the equation if people want to learn. But the challenge we have is in this connected world is the reality is we still have these 30-year-old plus control systems and assets on the factory floor that have to be part of the landscape. Because otherwise there's really no need, you're not going to be able to achieve full IIoT convergence unless you can take care of connecting those legacy assets. So you're in a world with an endless amount of data. I'm sure if we were doing a poll question on how many people have a lack of data in their plant, we'd probably not get too many answers. It's probably like asking the question of who gets too few emails a day. But the reality is we're not going to be in a full rip and replace mode in these plants and be constantly, being able to get CapEx and OpEx dollars to rip out everything that we would like to rip out. So in the old days, we all know the difference between OT and dealing with the assets on the factory floor and IT dealing with the people's PCs and tablets and smartphones, and the differences between OT doing the manufacturing transactions versus IT doing the business transactions. Maybe the biggest difference certainly is in the life cycle of the equipment, where when something's 4 years old in IT, it's already time to throw it out, and then multiply that kind of like the human years, dog years scenario of by 7. That the 4-year-old IT product is as old as a 28-year-old OT product on the factory floor. So there's certainly a lot of lessons to be learned as far as the life cycle, but at the same time, on OT really has always understood real time, and that's something that IT is certainly learning as the convergence continues to take place. There's still a number of plants, I'm sure if we were not using our phone tool, but if we probably even ask a show of hands of how many people still are using ISA 95 model in their plants, it's going to be, I would think the number would be pretty high, and certainly most of our clients and most of the plants that we visit, the ISA 95 model continues to live, especially because of all the legacy equipment that happens in these plants. But now you're in an area where you're having engineers and process people, smart connected machines on OT, having to work with people that are data scientists, that are cybersecurity experts, analytics software experts. But in the future, as things continue to converge, you're going to see all that beginning to blend together, and you're going to start to see data scientists working on the OT side. We kind of look at the difference in skills required to work in some of these jobs. And I can certainly tell you earlier in my career, they certainly didn't ask if I knew C++ or Python or Java or REST. But today, as the baby boomers continue to retire and they're being replaced by the millennials, these are some of the skills that are going to be required to fill these jobs. And sometimes we look at the needs of OT and the needs of IT, and they're really beginning to converge. And maybe the number one point of convergence is just the issue of cybersecurity, because who would have thought 20 years ago you'd have connected breakers? And when you thought of a connected motor, it was connected to a drive. It wasn't, certainly connected to the internet. But the whole issue of cybersecurity and the whole issue of unscheduled downtime. The OT side has always understood that no unscheduled downtime is acceptable. But it's now getting to the point where the information gathered from the factory floor that goes to the IT systems is equally as important for making real-time decisions. So downtime is now becoming an issue on the IT side of the world as well. It's also the difference between, the clean world of IT and maybe the little more industrial world of on the OT side and having to deal with that. OT, typically, you would have people who would have very, very long tenures in the plant. Many of the baby boomers that are retiring had been there for those jobs for sometimes 30, 35 years, where IT has had more millennial-style type of turnover for the roles. Regardless of what's put in today, again, if you even use the breaker as an example, everything that's being installed today, no matter what the asset, is smart. And that requires a different level of complexity to understand a smart connected breaker versus just a traditional breaker. And of course, the difference between having the amount of things that, because of connectivity, can be controlled and maintained on a remote basis versus having to be on site for that. So what are the benefits do we see for these systems? We certainly see, as things converge, we're going to do a better job with process variability, and I think we're going to certainly see KPI scores go up in production. We should have an increase in product quality, fewer rerun products, less waste. Because you're having all these assets that are connected, the ability to monitor their health and schedule MRO and spare parts, do a better job with asset performance management. You're going to have certainly lower situations of safety incidents, less accidents, an increase in worker safety. And with all this data brings the ability to do artificial intelligence, machine learning, the ability to use augmented and mixed reality to provide maintenance in the plants. So we're all very, very positive. But we always have to go back to that you still have that 40 or 50-year-old chart recorder having to coexist in a world with digital twins and wireless and augmented reality. And the only way you're going to be able to truly do IT-OT convergence is to be able to truly have a fully connected enterprise. And that's every asset, every person. If it's not connected, it's really of little use. So what are you able to do with IT-OT convergence? You want to get the most of your assets. I think it's going to really help in attracting the millennial worker to be more interested in careers in the manufacturing and processing. Putting it together is going to result in a lot more streamlining and be more responsive to customers, and ultimately really help the plants achieve the digital transformation that they require. So for our last question, as I'm beginning to bring up my first speaker, Dale Maloney. So if you could answer that question as Dale comes up to the stage, and then after we get some responses, we can kick off with Dale. So.